need to network on a relational basis, appropriately relational basis. And women, you need to recognize that when you're networking with men, it's good to be a little more direct, because that's the way they tend to network. So let's look at some of the data as a result of the survey of 12,000 people. We took a look at the average amount of time that men and women spent networking each week. Now, these are BNI members and non-BNI members. Okay, so it's many different people. This is not just BNI. When we pulled BNI out of it, they tended to spend more time networking. But for the general public, it was about 6 1/3 hours a week networking. Now, men spent about 6.44 hours a week networking. Women spent about 6.19 hours a week in their networking efforts. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The average percentage of business generated overall was 46.7% from their networking. And again, remember, this is more than BNI. This was open to the public. So the BNI members were generating a higher percentage, the public was generating a lower percentage. But the average was 46.7%. Men generated 43.96% of their networking, of their business through networking, and women generated 49.44% of their business. So let's review. Women spent less time and got more business through their networking than men did. And they were more likely to be relational in the way they networked, and men were more likely to be transactional in the way they networked. Now, one of the things that we then did was we took gender out of it, and we just looked at relational versus transactional. And we found that men and women who were relational, who really wanted to build an appropriate professional relationship with someone else, both generated more business than men and women who were transactional in the way they network. And that's the lesson here, is that it's really about that credibility stage that we talked about. That you got to establish that credibility. You got to get to know one another on a personal level, on a professional level. And when you know someone like that, it's way easier and it's more effective to refer people. We also found that people who spent more time networking generated a higher percentage of their business through networking. This slide shows that. The people who spend more of their time networking generated substantially more of their business through networking. And remember, this is not just BNI members. We have BNI members who said we got 95% of their business from BNI, 100% of their business from BNI. But this is the general public and BNI together. So the more time people spent networking, the more business they generated. Now, let me go back for just a second. The average hours spent 6.31 hours, so 6 1/3 hours a week. That was average. How many of you don't have to raise your hand, but think about it. How many of you want to be average? Nobody wants to be average. We want to be above average. So the truth is, you should be spending more than 6 hours a week networking. We recommend, based on the data that we have, about 8 hours a week. One day, so a few hours each day networking. And networking means going to networking meetings. It may be going